Hello, my name is Donovan Rader, and this is Outlook on Teen Parenting. 9% of girls from age 15 to 17 will have a child, although with the proper support, this is not always a bad thing. The reason why I chose this topic was because me and my girlfriend were expecting a child, and I knew she was going to be a big part of my life. I wanted to show the joys and the struggles of teen parenting. I wanted to try and focus more on the joys of it. I'm very passionate about this topic. I knew it wouldn't bore me easily and it would keep my interest. I want to show people the positive of teen parenting because most of the time they only hear the negatives. Oftentimes, teen parents are viewed as unsuccessful. They're used as warning signs to others not to follow in their footsteps. This is mostly because they're looked at as children themselves. School facilities can have a very negative impact on teen parents because they oftentimes look down on them very negatively. All these messages can have a very negative impact on the teens that are actually dealing with the fact of living and caring for a child. Many people don't realize the benefits of having a family at a young age. You have a more flexible time because you're not fully into a career yet. You're more likely to see your children retire, and you're more likely to become a great grandparent. You need to spend more years with your children. In the U.S., the average life expectancy is 80 years old. So if you have a child at 18, that gives you about 62 years statistically with your child. Younger parents better develop a sense of responsibility through caring for their children or for a child. And you realize that it's important to care about others and not just yourself. The most important thing for parents to do is make time for your children, especially newborns. They need a lot of attention. Teach them right from wrong. This can vary from person to person what they consider right and wrong. And prioritizing family responsibilities. Also, the cost can be a big thing. It can cost, on average, $165,630 just to raise a child to age 17, and that's before college. You make sure you're putting your child's needs before yours. It's very important. And it's also important to make memories with your child because they'll hold on to those forever. Single parenting can have a very negative effect on the parent and the child. It'll increase the stress. It's a higher financial burden. And also, it makes it harder to manage school, work, and also finding babysitters can be more of a task. In some cases, the one parent has to be both figures. Although I don't really have experience with single parenting because that's not my situation. For my product, I created a portfolio because I really wanted to have a visual effect of my experience. And I wanted to show people how it was through my eyes. Some of the things I included in my portfolio was what I expected it to be like the first week versus how it actually was. Her eating schedule, her feeding schedule, her sleeping schedule, and how old she was when she started doing certain things like trying to crawl and rolling over. The message I was trying to send with this project is to show that it's not as bad as people make it out to be. It can be a good thing if you want it to be. I want to show people how happy and well cared for my daughter is. And also try to show that it's hard to be a parent no matter how old you are. And that teen parents should receive more support rather than hatred. This benefited me in a number of ways. Some of them are it helped me grow up and be more responsible. It made me more motivated to succeed through high school and on to work. It made me a happier person all around, just being able to see my daughter grow and being able to make her happy. It's also made me closer to my family. The challenges I faced with this were the time. I had trouble meeting deadlines. And also setting up the portfolio, I didn't know how to format it. And just making it all come together as a complete project. Also some challenges of just parenting, or it can be hard to get up at night and sometimes you don't know what to do always. But although 9% of girls from age 15 to 17 will have a child, with the right support, it can be a good thing. Just try to put yourself in the teen's shoes. See how it affects them and how it changes them for good. Thank you. Do my judges have any questions?
Do you have the portfolio for us to look at?
Yeah, it's right here.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyone else?
What kind of challenges did you have with school scheduling, with taking care of the baby in school? Did you have, what kind of family support, immediate family?
Yeah, I mean, I had my mom to watch her, so it was pretty easy to find a babysitter. Either my mom would watch her or my girlfriend's mom, so it wasn't that hard to find a babysitter. But
That's good. Did you ever have, even for a minute, think about dropping out of school to take care of the baby?
no, I not really didn't think about it, but no, I didn't really.
Thank you.
I just have something to say. Kudos to you for finishing school.
Thank you.
I was a teen mom, but I had already graduated. And I couldn't imagine the struggle of having school, and I know you work, and taking care of a baby. So kudos to you.
Have you thought about how schools should address this topic, with it being a hardship on the students and their families? You know, traditionally, we've taught abstinence in the schools, but in reality, that doesn't always work. So have you thought of any ways that could be addressed in a way that would be more successful in the schools?
I don't really think there's a way to stop it, but if it's gonna happen, it's better for them to have support than like negativity. It'll be easier for them to actually succeed and finish school. Is that all?
Missouri is considered one of the heaviest states in Missouri, with 28% of adolescents being considered obese. My name is Bryce Surgeon. I'm here to talk about my senior project. Basketball has been a huge part of my life since about kindergarten. And with the obesity rates rising, I want to see basketball stick around. And if they keep rising like they are, then it has the potential to not be competitive like it is, or it could just slip away. There's two types of bullying that contribute to childhood obesity. Physical, which could be like putting your hands on or actually assaulting, or mental, which is calling names such as obese or just making fun of them. And these two types of bullying contribute to that, because if a child wants to go play basketball such as a playground, then he can't if he's getting bullied. Parenting. Another factor of childhood obesity is parenting. Parents can abuse their children. It's not actually abusing them, but it could be like letting them eat whatever they want, not making them exercise. And if DFS comes in and deems the place not safe, then they can take them away and the parents can receive jail time. Physical activity, the parent, video games. This chart here shows that parents are very aware of their child playing video games, but it still doesn't make them get outside or stop doing it. Health issues to obesity are heart disease, stroke, high blood pressure, diabetes, and cancer. If the child does become obese, he can receive any of these health issues and become less successful in the near future because hospital bills and stuff like that can add up. Parents are told that genetics determine weight, which is false. Genetics don't determine weight. You can actually prevent a child from becoming obese in many ways, is making them go outside and exercise, feeding them healthy, and providing them with a good home. Social media is also a big thing in childhood obesity because a child can be cyberbullied. Not want to come to school, where most children get their exercise is at school and they won't do it at home. So they don't come to school, they're not getting the physical activity like the other children are. My basketball coach, which is also a PE coach, told me that he has noticed more obese children coming through every year, which is not a good thing. And I want to see more kids more kids come out for basketball than there have been, and I don't want kids to make excuses such as I can't run or I am overweight. For my project, I did a staff versus students basketball game. I thought about this game over the summer, which for about 4 years, the players and the coaches have talked about who would win in a players versus staff basketball game. And I said, why don't we just find out with my senior project? And signing up for the game, I didn't make it an open sign up because I wanted to be more competitive than just people getting out there and not taking it seriously. The game, it really surprised me with the turnout because there was a lot of people there and we all had fun. I got the refs and the scoreboard keepers, and I had 9 players, 4 coaches, and 15 staff members sign up. I spent a lot of time on this project with the event. My 2 mentors were Coach Johnson, which we came up with the idea of the game. He helped me set it up, and Coach Bunch helped me set the game up that night with everything provided. And I provided the concession stand. The band did, I asked them to provide it. My challenges were finding a good time for the game. It was very hard with the schedule that was going on, with football season ending and basketball season starting. The times I asked people, I couldn't get enough to sign up, but October 27th was a perfect day. And getting people to sign up was rough because the staff members, they all use the same example was, we're overweight, we can't run. With a little convincing, I got 50 of them to sign up. In conclusion, there are many factors to obesity than just a child eating too much or such. Thank you. Any questions?
At what age would you see this issue of becoming a parent at Willow Springs?
It could be ages 10 through 17, like just adolescents in general.
Thank you.
Was your basketball team made up of basketball players?
Oh, it was senior basketball players. It was a team that we had in 3rd grade that we all grew up and we just got back together.
Okay, so did you encourage people who may not normally play basketball to play in order to combat?
Yeah, I had,
obesity?
there was a couple players that quit playing basketball, and I asked them to come back and play. Yeah.
Who were the coaches?
Jake Martin was the head coach, David Bryan was the assistant, Zach White was the assistant coach, and Nick was the manager.
War, massive shootings, school shootings, and rape. All very tragic and sad things. But what about the aftermath of all these things? Good evening. My name is Jacob Anderson. Today I'll be talking about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, is a mental health problem that some people develop after experiencing or witnessing a life-threatening event, such as house fire, car crash, rape, school shooting, or war. I didn't put war in there, but I should have. Anyways, other than that, these are very life-threatening events. I've been in a car crash. I wasn't conscious. I was blacked out during it, so I didn't have none of these. I didn't have PTSD. I didn't get any of the symptoms from it. Look at this picture. You see right here, this is our American soldier carrying the whole load. They got their gun, got their sack, their medical, all the stuff that they need to fight for our country. But what when they get home from war? Look at this picture. See that? That's a giant pill bottle. That because our hospitals, they give them drugs to help with PTSD. They're carrying all this load on them because they feel like this is all they're fighting for themselves now. They're not fighting for us, they're fighting for themselves. And we're not helping very much in the process. When they get back, what they get into is usually drugs, alcohol, and usually when they get into alcohol, it gets into abusive behaviors. And usually when they get into drugs, it leads to loneliness. And they'll have flashbacks and anything to do here. Let's say you have a family member who went off, who'd been in the Vietnam War, and they were always, they never drank, never touched a drug because they despise it. But when they got back, the doctors, the hospitals gave them drugs. And these drugs are very addictive. They'll take them all the time. They'll take multiple of them. Sometimes they will overdose over these drugs. They'll get to alcohol. They'll abuse their spouse, their family members. They'll be alone. They'll sit at home in the dark. They won't be able to sleep. They'll have flashbacks in their dreams. Most of the victims who have PTSD commit suicide. The suicide rate in male veterans is 38.3 per 100,000. It's a pretty high number for just our male soldiers, and that's out of all of them. For females, it's 12.8 per 100,000. People who have PTSD feel like they have no help at all. They feel like they're boxed in from society. And they'll experience change. Their behavior, their personalities, socialities, and hobbies all change. Like I was saying before, you have somebody who's always talking, always, outside, let's say they like playing football. When they get back, their behavior, they don't want to do anything. They want to sit at home, lay in bed, go to sleep, do drugs, drink alcohol. They'll get like heroin, cocaine, all that stuff to get the memory out. But sometimes it doesn't help. It'll lead to suicide, like the previous slide. I went online, I got a picture, because I want to show you guys what PTS looks like. From what I have in psychology, what I learned from psychology, this right here, what this is a healthy brain of a vision test in psychology. Let's say they're like watching a movie or something. Healthy brain, PTSD. As you can tell, it's shutting down. It's all working at once, different things. They're hearing, seeing, they're listening to different things. This right here, their vision, they're looking and listening to the TV. They're in their head. They're focused more on what happened on that tragic event. See, what I want to do, I want to see how much our government funded for PTSD. As you can tell up here, $14.3 billion for PTSD research and treatments. I want to compare it to two things. I compare it to cancer and war defense. Cancer, $4.9 billion, and war defense, $700 billion. This shouldn't be this high, but we got to protect our country, and our soldiers risk their lives for it. And when they get home, the ones who survive, 25% of them will have PTSD. What I did for my project, I wanted to help people. I wanted to make it where everybody has access to something that will help them. So I did school counseling, area counseling. I called local counselors from Willow and West Plains. I asked them what they do, how much it is, like what are treatments. I made it where I asked them, one of the questions I asked them, like, if there was a school shooting or any emergency here in Willow, will you guys be here, or your guys' business be here immediately in case of any emergency? Every single one of them said yes. This will also not just help us, our school, this will help our community, this will help West Plains and Mount Grove and Mount View all in one. A website. Right now, this is a Google Doc. The website our school has access to it, but sooner or later, this website will be access to our community and all schools around us. I have her name, price, location, and treatments. Right here, OMC Behavioral Healthcare. That's the name of the business or the counseling agency. The location is West Plains, Missouri. You probably know that place up there in West Plains, right? Anybody know where that's at? No, right. I asked them how much they charge. Right there, a sliding scale fee, which is good for people who have low income. So, they have a student here in school, shoot up, and they need immediate counseling. They'll work with how much you get paid. And it's usually around like 25 like a month, something like that. I want to know their treatments. I asked them all the same question, and OMC answered them all. They did it all besides for the animal, because I want to do animal therapy. The question I asked them if they did PTSD and trauma for like our soldiers and people who witnessed that, and almost every single one of them said yes, except for a few. I asked them if they did anxiety, depression, addiction. I asked them if they had family counseling for group therapy. Their personality disorder, ADHD, because ADHD was a pretty high one up there. Every single one did ADHD. Well, I got with Officer Moore, our school cop. I asked him, what about dog for our school? Because, you'll be outside and you'll have a stray dog. You have a lot of kids and like, wow, they're having a really rough morning. Like they see that dog, like, wow, that dog really made my day so much better. I was talking to him, it's a pretty high upkeep to keep a counseling dog, but with fundraising, we could probably do it. Our school has the potential to get a counseling dog if we all work together and get that around. The hardest challenge for this whole project and product was time. Getting with Officer Moore was pretty difficult because he's our school cop. He deals with the police department, he deals with the school board, he deals with everything. He goes far away and has conversations with all the other head officers, the captains, all that stuff. And MMA, our school mixed martial arts, it was pretty hard to get an exact time. And at school ended up at the end, when it got close to being finished, that was a difficult time. I had most of it all done besides for a few more things touching on the website, which I needed him to help to talk to Andrew, our school tech. So basically, in the end of all this, if you know somebody or if you're witnessing any symptoms of PTSD, don't be embarrassed about it. Get some help. I made a website for everybody to get access to this for a reason. I don't want people committing suicide because suicide is not a good thing. We're excited. Any questions? Thank you.
Today's adolescents deal with many struggles on a daily basis, whether that be bullying, anxiety, to peer pressure, to abuse, to stress at home. But the most uncommon thing that goes unrecognized by parents and by guardians or even counselors and teachers here at school is depression. Hello, my name is Haley Beavers, and I am here to talk to you about depression in adolescences. Depression is a mental illness. It can affect up to 5 to 7 million people. It will affect the adolescence age, which is 12 through 18, and it can even affect adults. Now, depression does manifest itself, so you might not always recognize the symptoms of depression. They can be hidden, so when a child is going through something, you might not know, because children, especially youth, do not verbalize their feelings. The causes of depression can be bullying, peer pressure, abuse, and stressful events. Now, with bullying, you find this a lot in school, and bullying cannot be prevented like it should be. So when a child is bullied, this could lead to depression. So when they get in high school, this depression could go on. And out of one of those 8, a person will take their life because of the cause of bullying. The symptoms of depression can be irritability, agitation, feelings of hopelessness, and worthlessness. Now, everybody does experience irritability at some point in their life, but when a child is going through depression, you might not notice because you might not think this is one of the symptoms. Now, this is a big symptom. Now, this is the hidden symptom. They might lash out on everybody. This can also cause problems in school. If a child is not wanting to participate in school activities, that is a major sign to watch for. The feelings of hopelessness and worthlessness, this can be a problem with depression, because if you are thinking of the feeling of hopelessness and worthlessness, then that can also lead to suicidal thoughts. Depression can cause self-harm, whether that be harming yourself with a blade or just simply just not eating at all. You can have suicidal thoughts when you are dealing with depression, so that is a big issue for most, because most think that it's the only way out if you just take your life. So counselors and parents need to be aware of this for a symptom and a cause, because we don't want children taking their life. There are different types of depression. Now, there is bipolar depression, assistive depression, there is postpartum and clinical, but today I'm only going to cover two of you. Bipolar depression. This is one that can be easily detected. This is one with severe mood swings. This is called the manic phase. A child can go back and forth between happy to just lashes out in anger. Now, this is irritability, like I stated before. Everybody does get irritable, but when you're dealing with bipolar depression, this happens a lot more than you think. The inability to think clearly. Now, when someone is dealing with bipolar depression, you might not realize the actions that are occurring. So that they might harm others, they might harm themselves, but the episode will not last long, but that child or adult, can even happen to adults, does need to get help. This is a lifelong condition. There is medicines for this, but this is a lifelong condition that happens in the brain that if you are dealing with bipolar depression, counselors and stuff like that can help you, but you have to be able to recognize that they are going through a manic phase. Postpartum depression. Everybody knows that childbirth is an absolutely beautiful thing, but do they know that after a mother gives birth to a baby, that you can deal with postpartum depression, which is a depressed mood with severe mood swings. Now, the overwhelming fatigue is something that not many people would consider a symptom, because as a mother, you are very tired. But this is one of the major signs that can happen to a mother who is dealing with postpartum depression. Now, this is sometimes referred to as PPD. It can happen to a lot of mothers. It will not happen to every mother, but for some, this does happen. And this does cause them to have panic attacks. And this does cause severe anxiety. Now, if a mother is going through this, she might not be able to bond with her baby clearly. So this is a big issue, and it is a serious issue that does happen to mothers. They can go to counseling, and this may not last, but this can happen after 6 weeks to even 6 months after having a child. There are antidepressants that can help you, but some will increase the suicidal thoughts, and it can even increase depression. There is Prozac, fluoxetine, Zoloft, and Lexapro. A study found in the 1900s that Prozac and fluoxetine were the leading cause of most people's suicide thoughts and suicide attempts. So some states did ban this, but they brought it right back. So some counselors will prescribe this, and it can help. Everybody has different symptoms that they will experience. So fluoxetine may help some, fluoxetine may increase thoughts in others. Prozac could do the same thing. With the Lexapro and Zoloft, they found it is more helpful and it is a mood stabilizer. So if you are someone with bipolar depression, Lexapro or Zoloft may help you. There are coping skills for those who do struggle with depression and they just need to get away. You can listen to music, you can draw, you can read and write. Some say that painting does help. So if you are someone who is dealing with this, you could try this. Now, for some, they use this skill in school when they are having a suicide thought or they're just in a depressed mood and they know that they need to work. There is some that will use these in schools to help them. This is Brianna, and she is a major survivor of depression. Brianna's depression actually started when she was 9 years old. She did try to take her own life. Now, when her depression started, she had 4 suicide attempts, swallowing 74 ibuprofen. She was immediately rushed to the hospital. She would not receive help. So unfortunately for Brianna, another suicide attempt did happen. She now goes on to tell her story. For Brianna, she did not grow up in a very good household. Her mother was abusive. Her mother also did struggle with depression. So when Brianna was living with her mother, she experienced abuse and her mom was never there for her. Now, Brianna calls this a black hole. That's how she describes her depression. Brianna says that her depression is not something that she can escape and she does not expect others to escape. With the right treatment, the right medications, Brianna got help, and now she goes around to schools and tells her story. Her depression was also caused by bullying, and that is a major cause in some schools. So she will go around and she will talk about the effects of bullying, and she does tell her story about how she fought and how she still fights depression every day. For my product, I did Red Ribbon Week because when I was researching, I found that most people who deal with depression go through bullying, which is not a very good thing. So I decided I was going to help with Red Ribbon Week. I made some flyers for the middle school, I made ribbons and bracelets, and I did go around and I did talk to them about the effects of bullying. So if we could stop bullying before it even happened, which would be great, then most people would not end up taking their life. Bullying is a major issue and we cannot get it to go away. It's going to happen in every single school, but my purpose of this was try to get the middle schoolers to understand that bullying does have effects later on in life. About 80% of teens and adults who experience depression will not receive help, and about 20% of those end up taking their life. Depression is a very serious mental issue, and it does need recognition. And schools need to recognize that bullying can have such a big effect on this. I researched the types of depression. I found antidepressants, coping skills, treatments, and I even found the causes. Now this was a stretch for me because I am not very good at time management, so I about ran out of time of doing this. But the whole purpose for me for researching the types of depression was I am a depression survivor. I deal with this every single day, and it does affect problems in school and it can affect problems at home. So this was big for me. I do coping skills, but when I was doing this, it meant a lot to me because I wanted to get my point out. I've actually had a friend who took his life because of bullying. So, adolescent depression will not happen to everybody, but it does happen to some. And those who do have adolescent depression can go on to be adults later in life and still deal with depression every single day. Now, this is a big problem area. Schools need to recognize that children do go through depression. Even adults do go through depression. So workplaces need to understand if an adult is having a bad day at work, maybe with their irritable and lashing out, they need to be aware of these signs because not many parents and educators are aware of these signs. Now, counselors, some of them aren't even aware of these signs until they get in there and they talk to their child about what's happening in their life, or talk to an adult what's happening in their life. So this has a major effect. We need to be aware of the symptoms, the causes, and the signs so that we can stop depression and help the ones who do have depression so that will not take their life later on. Do my judges have any questions for me? Yes.
Did you find anything about bullying in elementary school?
Yes, I did. It does not happen a lot, but there is bullying in elementary school, which is really sad because that's just elementary. But for the high school and middle school, it is a huge amount. About 70% will get bullied, and that can even happen in this high school. And as much as we can suspend them and get rid of them, the next time they come back from suspension, that bully is still going to do it. And because of that, most people do in their lives or do have struggles with this. Some teenagers will even drop out if they think that the bullying will stop. Yes?
Do you have any information on the suicidal ideation hotline, like MOCARs for adults and also teens at behavioral health care and local? Did you have some information?
I did research that. I did research the MOCARs, and they're welcome to adults and anybody. Unfortunately, I was not able to do that in my project like I wanted to, or it would have been up here. But when I researched that, I found that a lot of adults and a lot of teens will call because they're too afraid to open up to their parents. and to a guardian, which is sad. So when they call, Mo Options really helps. But the most of their calls, when I talk to a lady that used to work for Mo Options, is they're talking an adult or a teen out of suicide because of the effects of bullying. Yes.
As someone who suffers from depression, did you learn anything through your research that you didn't already know?
I did. I learned that there are many different types of depression, and I actually found more symptoms that I had no idea that I had. I did not realize that I was irritable, and that I would lash out on everyone, and I did not realize that it caused me to have problems in school at all. And I actually was able to research that I had a type of depression, which I kind of have bipolar. I do take medication for it. I've been on some of those medications, which has helped me. So, does anybody else have any questions? Thank you. Thank you, my judges, for being here.
Art how old they are, or even their culture. Hello, my name is Catherine Ramos, and I will be discussing the different parts of, the different versions of art. Self-expression is a big thing when it comes to artists, because I know some artists, they use it to express their emotions and even express their life struggles, such as when someone's struggling with anxiety, depression, or even self-harm. And there's also the life struggles of work, home, school, juggling all of that. And there's also artistic freedom, which some of it comes from their culture, like religion, their morals, and their perspective. And then there's, like I said before, emotion through it, meaning it's a way to let go of their problems and able to express how they feel, even if their words can't say it. During my research, I came across many theories, some of which is emotionalism, which basically is when someone believes that there should be an emotional connection to the audience in which the piece of art is created. Such as the piece I chose for this slide. To me, it feels like someone was struggling, like the artist was struggling when they created that piece, and that their struggles were slowly breaking them down and making them overwhelmed. And then there's formalism, which I would say I didn't look up, I'll admit I didn't look up too much of this one, because I didn't fully understand it. But I would say it's what art critics use when they're studying and analyzing different versions of art, which helps decide which art goes into which genre, which museum, and so on. And then there's the realistic one, which is called imitationalism, where an artist goes and creates something realistic, such as the Mona Lisa I chose for this slide, which I think is Leonardo. I feel bad for not knowing this by heart, but I think it was Leonardo da Vinci who painted her. I'm not 100% sure on that one, so don't quote me on that. But he painted Mona Lisa from a real woman, therefore making it realistic. And then my art studies, I came across Beth Thomas Hertz, who recorded how art workshops can affect many different people struggling through things such as PTSD, depression, anxiety, and many other medical issues. And then there was also Adamson, who I didn't catch the name in my research. They just called him Adamson, so I don't know if that was kind of like to keep him from being publicized and questioned and everything. He worked with the Northern Hospital patients to explain and help express how the artists' art with the workshops could help with their medical issues and their medical situations. And then there was Frank Otto, who had hosted a 45-minute art session for ages 18 to 59, who all either struggled from home situations, medical issues, or even life struggles, such as maybe they were in foster care when they were young, they were abused, PTSD, depression, many different forms. And restrictions to art, in my research, as I wrote this, I realized that many art critics try to restrict how art is judged and how art is created, such as like the creativity and the age and the imagination, which also I'll go into more depth of that with my product later on. But creativity is basically like the snowflake that was created in one of my workshops. I thought it was very creative, and I was surprised about how old the owner who created it and how creative he got with it. Which also he had his kids with him, which I believe some of that was influenced by their imagination and maybe his own. And my art workshops, I chose them because to me, art I have a connection with. Because personally, I've struggled with a lot. Like, not all of it is easy to explain, but since middle school, I've been going through rough times, especially when it comes to high school, because you deal with judging, you deal with bullying, and some of that I went through. And as stated in my first slide, self-harm was one of my self-expression. Art is what helped me get out of that and to help express what I was feeling. And, well, my art workshops, I hosted 5 of them. Each one I have listed on my trifold here. Well, they're also in this binder I put together. I have all of a little bit of each workshop, except for the one I hosted on November 17th, because the papers were too big for the sleeves. And so, but I do have pictures of them, and I know a lot of people love that. But I had one in October, November, January, and I had 2 in February. To begin with, I was going to do only 4, but then I had time issues, and then I also loved working with the kids and the adults and everybody who joined in, and so I decided to do a 4th one, but when I scheduled the 4th one, 5th one, I was not aware of the date at the time, but that was also the night of the Spanish play, so that was a fun stretch. And then I was surprised with how many people showed up, because I had about 19 to 20 for my first one, and this picture right here is just some of them. And most of them are kids, but I also had a few adults joining in, and so it was really fun, and everybody seemed to get into it. And these, I have a picture of each of my workshops. This one I think was on my previous slide. I did not realize I used the same one. But this was my first one, which I had them using coloring sheets. At first I was going to do like a Halloween arts and crafts type of thing, like they would do in elementary, to like get them in the spirit of Halloween. But then everybody enjoyed the coloring, and so I just let them color. And then this one was back in November. I apologize for it being blurry, but I had them doing handprint trees, in which I had them paint their entire forearm to their fingertips brown and paste it on the paper. And I let them either use their Q-tips or fingers to use the leaves. This one was the Snowflakes, which I've already showed 2 of them. This one was a mixture of these 2, because I let them use coloring painting sheets. And then this one was my technology element, in which I let them use an art program. My stretch was time really bad, because it was hard for me to schedule, because some of which I didn't all think through. I had to have a lot of help with scheduling from my mentor. And I also had a really bad procrastination problem, especially when it comes to getting the flyers out. And then like I said, the scheduling, which goes with time, and the procrastination. And then there was the big one with the material gathering. Luckily, our own high school art teacher, Mr. Wade, who was just down the hall, or at least his classroom is, helped me and loaned me the supplies I needed. And this is the flyer of my first one. And I had to deal with being the center of attention and leadership. And that was one of the biggest stretches for me because it stresses me out and I don't like being the center of attention. Like right now, because I'm kind of blabbering. And then my challenges accepted part, which was, as I said, the leadership, and I had to deal with the socializing, the publicizing of my event. And so I had to deal with socializing with everyone, publicizing it to the stock shops and on Facebook. And for basically what I learned in this, art can come from anywhere, no matter the age, their size, their race, their color, their culture. Art has no boundaries. It's the one thing that nobody can ever take from you in any way. Thank you, and do my judges have any questions?
Plan to be an art teacher?
Actually, that is what my mentor told me to do. He said, I quote, you should go either teaching elementary kids so you can do more art stuff, or you should continue doing the art workshops. Yes?
Has this experience in leadership helped you to gain
Confidence.
help you to do that next step? And what might that next step be as far as being a leader?
I think that helped me get out of my, because growing up, I'm shy. I don't like getting out in front of people. I don't like being center of attention. And so I think this actually helped me a little bit, because it also helped me with my socializing skills. Because it helped me be able to get more comfortable with people and not feel as intimidated or shy. And so, yeah. Any other questions? Thank you.
If any of you has ever had to go to the hospital and then has received a bill, you know how outrageously expensive healthcare can be. You're not alone in this problem. The whole nation of America has very expensive healthcare. The Congressional Budget Office estimated in 2011 that by 2082, healthcare would take up 49% of America's GDP. Good evening, my name is Wesley Clarkson, and I did my project on healthcare in America. I researched the political and economic aspects of healthcare, and for my project, I led and organized a group of volunteers to build furniture for the local nursing home. One of the biggest issues with healthcare in America is its cost. In 2015, it was 17.8% of America's GDP was spending on healthcare. The population has been increasing in age. And as people age, they get more diseases, which also increase healthcare costs. 32% of healthcare spending in Medicare is from overuse of procedures, where too many or unnecessary procedures are used. 5% of the patient population, patients with multiple chronic conditions, make up 66% of the cost. Part of the major costs of a person are in the last year of their life. And one possible solution to this is palliative care. It improves experiences for patients and their families, and is also much less expensive than other options. The government has been involved in healthcare for a very long time. In the 1960s, Lyndon B. Johnson signed Medicare and Medicaid into law. Medicare is a health insurance program for people over the age of 65, people who need dialysis, and for people who are disabled. Medicaid is a health insurance program for the impoverished. Medicaid was expanded in 2000, and Medicaid was expanded by the Affordable Care Act to cover people 138% of the federal poverty line. Some people and groups have argued that the government should be more involved in healthcare, such as Bernie Sanders. In his 2016 campaign, he argued that there should be universal health insurance in the United States, or Medicare for all, where people would not be required to pay at all at the point of service, but it would be paid for by higher taxes on the wealthy and health insurance premiums on people and businesses. Costs would also be lowered by taking all the administrative duties that previously all the insurance companies would have done and putting them into one government entity. And also because the government would be able to negotiate with medical suppliers to lower prices. Another group with a similar plan to Bernie Sanders for more government involvement in healthcare was the PNHP, or Physicians for a National Health Program. They argue that hospitals in America should be turned into not-for-profits and be given budgets by the government. There are also several ways to improve the healthcare system. First, utilizing more non-doctors for certain technical tasks. Collecting more information so we actually know which treatments are effective and which aren't. One way to do this would be through integrated healthcare systems, where people are treated all by one organization so that the outcome of a treatment can be assessed. Several regulations could also be improved. People should be allowed to purchase insurance outside of their own state. And the tax advantage between employer plans and personal plans should be eliminated. This would make the insurance markets more competitive since people could choose, would have more choices. One possible option for reforming the insurance markets is managed competition. This is where the government would regulate health insurance to make sure it was fair and honest, and would prevent things like adverse selection and denial of service based on pre-existing conditions. It would require that everybody have health care to prevent adverse selection. There are also several alternative models to traditional insurance for paying for health care. These include HSAs and HRAs, which are health savings accounts and health reimbursement accounts. Health savings accounts are where people can save money in an account tax advantage to pay for their health care. These come with a high deductible insurance policy, and these usually lower costs for people, since they have more incentive to lower their healthcare costs because most of the money that they'll be using at first will be their own money in their account, which they can take out of their account to use for other things, but they'll have to pay taxes on it at that point. A better way to pay doctors is capitated pay. This is where doctors are paid per person that they take care of, rather than for each individual or procedure. This is good for patients with chronic conditions, so they can receive continuous care. Bundled payments are another way to improve it. This is where a healthcare provider is paid in one lump sum to take care of a particular condition, like a heart attack, rather than being billed for everything like the hospital stay and the surgery and all the different things. For my product, I led and organized a group of volunteers to build outdoor furniture for the local nursing home. This is a good way to improve the residents of the nursing home, to improve their lives and hopefully improve their happiness and health. We built 2 benches, 3 small planters, and 1 wheelchair accessible planter. The product proceeded in several stages. First, I had to find out what the nursing home needed. I had to call them and talk to 2 different administrators from different areas of the the nursing home. And then I had to find plans online. The wheelchair accessible planter didn't have full plans, so with my mentor, I drew up plans for that. Next, I tallied up all the material, everything I needed from all the plans, and accounted for how many of each thing I would need, and went to Wagner's and bought all the materials I was going to need and brought them back home. Luckily, the nursing home provided the funding for this part of the process. Building took 2 days. I invited a large group of volunteers to help with the building. This was also part of my Eagle Scout project, which one of the requirements was leading a large group of volunteers in a service project. Most of the volunteers were from my Boy Scout troop and my family. Lastly, I had to put finishing touches on the project. I had to go through and sand all the rough corners and edges off everything. And then I had to deliver it to the nursing home. Later this summer, we're going to go back and place wood stain on everything that we built. This is the patio area of the nursing home where the benches and the smaller planters went. The residents will be able to, this is a nice outside sitting area that the residents will be able to use. And this is the wheelchair accessible planter. This is located in the outdoor Alzheimer's ward area, and the patients there will be able to wheel their wheelchairs up to it if they're in a wheelchair. And I've heard that some of them were farmers before they came to the nursing home, and this will give them an experience they haven't had in a long time. I faced many challenges during my project. First, there was organization. I had to be organized and call everyone and have the plans ready. And just because I was the coordinator of the project, this was one of my most important tasks. Next was my inexperience with woodworking. This was a problem, but luckily I had good volunteers and I had a good mentor to help me with this. Leadership was another one. I wasn't used to or very good at leading people, but on the second day in particular, there were a lot more younger scouts who were middle schoolers, and I had to direct them around to find places to work if they weren't busy. And that required me to take charge. Some takeaways from my project are to stay informed about healthcare in your community and in your nation, and to volunteer in your local community. Do my judges have any questions?
Do you plan to make any more furniture?
No, I'm not currently planning to make them. They are pretty nice though. My mentor is an experienced carpenter. Yes, Glenn.
Wesley, you mentioned in the beginning that one of the main costs associated with healthcare comes from the overuse of certain procedures that doctors might do. Do you know of any local doctors personally that overuse procedures?
I'm not sure exactly.
I got you.
My parents have told me that this is a problem.
Okay.
Can you tell me some things that a non-doctor, well, you mentioned using non-doctor personnel for certain things. Can you tell me some of the things that you would use a non-doctor for?
Well, I didn't come across any specific mentions in my research, but I know that there are a lot more nurse practitioners being used in certain areas because there aren't enough doctors available in some places. And there's technicians that do tests and stuff, and I know those people often could do some jobs that doctors still do.
Are you familiar with the use of hospitalists?
I think my dad is a hospitalist.
Yeah. I know he is. I saw him in the hospital. I want your opinion of hospitalist versus your primary care physician. Was there any?
I saw in my research that America has a big shortage of primary care physicians, and that doctors are going to hospitals more, but.
That was it.
Yeah.
Tell your dad I don't like it.
Well, I guess if it's just a normal physician, they're more likely to be in a rural area than in a big hospital.
With your interest in this topic, are you planning on going to the medical field?
No, I'm not planning on going to the medical field. I was just curious because this is something that people complain about sometimes, and my parents don't like all the paperwork they have to do.
John Denver once said, "Music does bring people together. It allows us to express the same emotions. People everywhere are the same in heart and spirit. No matter what language you speak, the color of your skin, the form of our politics, or the expression of our spirit and our faith, music proves we are the same." My name is Avery Traver, and today I would like to speak with you guys about the benefits of listening and playing music, as well as the applications and benefits of using music therapy in today's society. Now, playing music allows kids to develop problem-solving skills. In a high school setting, when a student is presented with a sheet of music, they have to figure out what notes they're playing, how to put the notes together, how they'll sound as a section, and also how they'll sound as an entire band, therefore to work on creating that masterpiece. Now, it also allows kids to work as a team. It's not an individual type of thing where you kind of do things on your own. You have to work with the rest of your section and put all the parts together to make that masterpiece. Now, it also allows kids to have a boosted work drive. A study was conducted on 2 groups of children. Both groups were doing math problems in a quiet room, but the one room had music quietly playing while the other did not. And the one with music playing showed that children worked faster and more accurately on the math problems than the children with no noise in the room. It also improves focus and memory in children. It allows them to play a song and work on something, and later when the same song is played while they're working on that same thing, it allows them to have better recall and therefore do things more efficiently. Now, transitioning to music therapy, it also helps children on the autism spectrum, especially in that focus and memory category. But it also allows them to use music to express their emotions to one another and communicate better. It also helps Alzheimer's patients. There was a study done on a man who was in his late 80s with Alzheimer's, and when music was played from his teenage years and young adulthood, he showed a complete and total different demeanor. He was a new person, he answered questions, he communicated better, and it was something that they found recurred multiple times with him. Now, it also helps type 2 diabetes patients. Type 2 diabetes patients undergo a lot of stress and memory loss, and with music therapy, it allows them to relieve their stress, and also it allows them to have a better and recharged memory. And there's more than meets the eye with music. It is not just a hobby. A lot of people think you can pick up an instrument in a few months and maybe toss it away, and it's just something you can do here and there. But a lot of people use music as a lot more than that. It's more than just a hobby. It's a team building kind of exercise. It allows people to learn how to work together as a team or in a band, whether it's a rock band, a classical music band, or a jazz band. It allows people to work together and put music together. It's more than individual talent as well. A lot of people think that in, let's say, a marching band, that one trumpet or one drummer or whatever might make the band better than another person. But if someone's slacking, that's just bringing the entire band down. You have to be on the same page and you have to work together. Now, for my senior product, I decided to go ahead and follow music, and because of that, I went and made a band that I called Brass and Sass. And I got the idea from 2 guys that I met through our band program during marching season named Joey and Jacob Heflin. They're 2 brothers and music majors at MSU Springfield, and they invited me this summer to go see their band perform, which it's a traveling brass band. And they take it to different locations and kind of do it for sponsorships or for free, even for entertainment. Now, we don't have anything like it here at Willow Springs. We have a marching band for football season, we have a pep band for basketball, and we have a concert band for just year-round usage. But we don't have anything that just kind of goes to events and just gives entertainment for anything here and there when they're asked for it. And we practiced whenever we could. We had marching season start off the year, so it was really hard to find free and practice time. So we just kind of had to find time whenever we could on the weekdays. We'd just get together, and anytime we could, we would get some practice, even during band. Now, when Jace Hutzel and Miss Beck came to me and asked me to perform at the Spanish play this year, they had 2 nights, and they wanted me to play for entertainment before the show when people were getting seated. And it was perfect for me because I've always been a part of the theater, and I've always loved to help them out there. So it was just even better for me to be able to play and give entertainment for them. And we rocked out both of our performances. But we had a lot of hard time and struggles. For me personally, time management and scheduling was a big thing. I was working 30+ hours a week when I started this product, and I had some members who were also working. I had people who had sports they were a part of or extracurricular activities. So scheduling and managing our time was really hard, especially when we were there and we had a short amount of time, and it was hard to keep people focused and on track while we were practicing. Now, dedication was a big problem for me as well. I had some people who came to me beforehand and wanted to be a part of it, but then later they decided they didn't want to do it. Or I had people who would kind of show up here and there when they wanted to, and some who even missed our performances, and I had a few people who dropped out midway through. And now leading a band was a big problem for me because I've been in charge of the percussion section here at Willow for a couple years now, and leading what I know and what I'm used to is a lot easier for me than leading a lot of different instruments and kind of helping everyone put everything together. But I kind of learned some stuff and I took some advice from some people, and I'm glad we got through it. Now, what I've learned is stepping up to the occasion is a big thing. I didn't realize how much it would take for me to step up and kind of lead these guys and do something I had done before until we were there and we were doing it. But I learned how to do it, and I'm glad because I can apply that in real life. Now, working with others was a big thing for me. I like to think of myself as a charismatic kind of person, but whenever I'm taking things serious, it's kind of hard for me to get along with everyone all the time. And we had some squabbles here and there, but we fought through it and came out all better for it. And fun is important. Going into it, I wanted to be serious, and I wanted to make sure this was the best band I could make. And it took me some time to realize that we've got to have fun with it, or else it's not going to be enjoyable for everyone. Music is something that is enjoyable and something we can do together. And if you take it too serious, then it's just not going to be fun for anyone. Now, in conclusion, music is beneficial to anyone listening or playing. It can help you work through problems and all sorts of good stuff like that. And it helps different people through music therapy. It also is a team building exercise, and it increases people's social skills. It's the bridge that gaps two people who may have never met. Music allows people from two different worlds to come together and be one. It's just like John Denver said. It doesn't matter what language you speak, your faith, the type of politics you support, or the color of your skin, because music proves it is for everyone. Thank you. Do my judges have any questions?
What type of music do you like to play the best?
What kind of music do I like to play? Honestly, like anything I can get my hands on. Like I like jazz music, I like concert music. We've played some more rock type of music in our pep band, but anything that's fast and fun for me is, I'm a drummer. I just like to go fast. I like to have fun with it.
You mentioned the de-emphasizing in a humble way the individual talent, but if you had to pick one, would you say it's more important to have a percussion section that kind of sets the tone, or like say a trumpet, for example?
I would have to go and say, I'm a little biased in this, but I would have to say the percussion is definitely more important. The percussion is your the percussion is your beat, and it is your pulse of the band. Without a pulse, you are dead.
Totally agree.
So after doing this, do you feel like going into music therapy is a profession?
I have to say no. As much as I do appreciate it and think that there should be more done with it in today's society, it's not for me. I am looking to pursue a minor in music, just so if I decide to go into it, I can be a drum technician and help high schools and teach percussion sections, but I don't think music therapy would be my biggest passion.
So what is your passion?
Honestly, business. I like the idea of running and owning my own business, but at the same time, I want to make sure I have music there in my life still.
Have you ever played Wipeout?
No, I have not.
Have you heard of this?
I've heard Wipeout. My brother even has an old burnt CD with Wipeout on it. I found it a couple months ago and put it in my car and started listening to it. It was great.
My name is Stephen Hale. It's fairly common knowledge to know that everyone has bad days. But with me, every day was a bad day. At least it used to be. So I live with general anxiety disorder, or GAD. And what GAD is, it makes you think about every situation, every concept, and every phrase that not only what you say, but what everyone says to you. It led to a life of overthinking, which that's related with life of misery. What is general anxiety and where did mine derive from? Well, general anxiety is sort of a link to depression. You overthink, you develop a sort of a lack of self-worth, and thus you think less of your life. You think of your opinions as not worthy of being said. Where did mine derive from? Well, society doesn't really view fat as attractive. And I used to struggle with being overweight as a severe problem. It was bad in my life. And it's really non-conforming. Society will judge you off of how you look without taking into consideration of your feelings or who you are underneath your skin. And that's a hard concept to take in, especially as a developing teenager who's going through more than just a little bit of emotion. It's a roller coaster. So rejection is a concept most people struggle to overcome without changing themselves. I knew I had to change myself in one way or another, or else I'd keep living a life filled with misery, and I didn't enjoy that. So this lack of confidence led to serious problems that made me more depressed as life continued. The more I thought, the more I became depressed. Originally, I only saw one form of release to get over this, and it wasn't a healthy release. I turned to drugs and self-harm, and as you saw in the last picture, I had a little injury on my chest. That was from burning myself with a lighter. And what you didn't see is I also had several cuts on my wrist. And in hindsight, that was a ridiculous way to deal with my problems, but at the time, that was my only mental release. So why not just lose weight through dieting? Well, it's not 100% effective. You can't go from one extreme to the other and expect to lose a healthy amount of weight. And changing lifestyle is even more stressful. When you change one extreme to the other, it does come with several flaws. Your body isn't used to that. Thus, you will retain fat. Your body expects and assumes that you need that much fat and that many calories that you're consuming on a daily basis. When you go and just completely cut those off, you'll gain even more weight. A good quote from Catherine Ross is from the University of Texas: attempting to fit norms of appearance through the method of dieting may be more stressful than not fitting them. And that was my issue. Originally, I did try dieting, and that got me nowhere except deeper into thought and then deeper depressed. Diets don't lead to sustained weight loss or health benefits from the majority of people, but exercise absolutely does. Instead of worrying about dieting, instead of allowing my mental health issues cause me to cause physical health issues, I turned to weightlifting, and I turned my whole life around through that process. It's also more than just looking good. That lack of confidence does derive from not looking good, but it also comes with health benefits. See, whenever you don't move around, chronic diseases develop. You can potentially develop CVD or cardiovascular disease, and 4 out of 10 deaths in the United States are related to CVD. And to understand why that is, you need to understand how the cardiovascular system works. When you're sitting all day and you're not moving, your blood is just pulling up. It's not moving. It's not getting to where it needs to go. And thus you will develop blood clots, you can develop heart disease, and you can develop several other issues, major issues that can lead to 4 out of 10 deaths. So to prevent these and to inspire others to follow in my footsteps, to not only lead down a better, healthy life, both physically and mentally, but to instill important values, I decided to host a weightlifting program. I knew that inspiring others was important, and I wanted to prevent potential injury later on, because when someone goes into the weight room for the first time, they'll typically say, well, just put on a whole lot of weight and see what happens, and That's how you get hurt. That's how I originally got hurt. And instills important values. If you're not willing to motivate yourself to get better, then who is? Later down in life, sure, you'll have people tell you to do this and that whenever you're younger, and you'll have good role models. But whenever you're independent, you have to be able to learn some self-discipline. And that derives from early on. And I wanted to be that role model to help these kids understand how to develop on their self-discipline. So I took several different groups for my project through several of my personal workout routines at the old gym, the YMCA, and Fair Grove. In this first picture, I'm at the old gym working out with a really awesome kid named Nate McDaniel. And sadly, he was the only one who turned up for my first event. However, gladly, I was able to work one-on-one with him, and I could really give all my attention. So I worked with him only for a day, but I was able to teach him how to prevent injury through upper body lifts, lower body lifts, and really whatever he wanted to learn, I was fully willing to teach him. In the second picture, we're at the Fair Grove. It's pre-existing Ironbear members already in the high school, and it was sort of me, my Coach Wall and I's way to give back to those who have already incorporated so much of their time into their bodies. And they were able to show off who they are, what they're made of. And this third picture is honestly my favorite group I got to work with. It was the 3 students, both in middle school. I knew each of these students personally, and I knew that they were going through issues similar to my own when I was their age. And I was able to not only be an inspiration to them, but I was able to, for 6 days out of a week, for about 2 hours after school every week, and even on the weekend, I could teach them from the ground up how to not only get good and physically healthy right now, but I taught them information that they could use later on in life. I put these kids through an experience they've never been subjected to before. They've never had a 17-year-old guy come and give them all my effort and all my time. And that was really beneficial to them, I feel at least, because it was beneficial to me. I did face several challenges through my project. It was getting the students to show up. What kid wants to, well, during the season, it was youth season for deer hunting, and what kid wants to go out and shoot some deer rather than, work out? Most kids. And overcoming the social anxiety I still have, I did still face a lot of social anxiety, but this was a really big stepping stone for me, was being able to get in front of these group of kids and teach them something, relay the information I already knew and my own knowledge to them. And getting to do that was hard. It was straining, both mentally and physically for me. It was a straining process. But I did get better, and I was able to fully dedicate my time and my knowledge to them. And then finally, the time after school. I'm a senior. I've got stuff to do. But these kids were willing to sign up and to give them their attention and their time. Why not give them my attention and my time? And these were difficult to overcome, but nowhere near as difficult as it is to overcome depression. The last thing I want to see is those last 3 kids, or really any of the kids I just showcased, go through what I did. I wanted to teach them a healthy release for their mental frustration, or whatever problems they may be going through at home, or whatever else they may have going on in their lives. I wanted to show them there is a better way than the way I originally started. And that's what I did. And I am so glad I did. So thank you. My judges have any questions?
Are you going to continue with these kids?
I mean, I have provided my cell phone information, any personal contact information they want, that they only have to reach out to me.
Are you going to college somewhere?
Absolutely, yes.
And then, of course, is it going to be near here where you can continue with?
Oh, yeah, of course. And those last 3 kids, I've had a whole process with them, and they know that they can come if they need to.
Did you play sports in high school?
I did. I played football and a little bit of track and a little bit of tennis, and it did contribute to my release, but it wasn't something that I could dedicate my time to and find most beneficial to me. That's what it was.
What are you looking at as a career?
Well, I'm actually looking to be an attorney later on in life. And, yeah.
And an unrelated thing, but, so I like to exercise too, but, you know, what I'm worried about is getting too much muscle, like I am now. So is that something I need to worry about with mobility and quality of life? Okay, this is, okay, thank you.
See, to answer that question, way back, somebody said to me, later in life, you don't have to lift to gain, you lift to maintain. So you don't have to overdo. You just want to maintain where you are so that you know, because once you start lifting, you know, you don't want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And of course, he spent 5 hours a day in a weight room. And you're not going to be able to do that all the time. So you lift enough to maintain what you have, not to build.
And I didn't really see it originally as a way to build or maintain. It was more of an emotional release for me. Being able to push up that heavy weight in the weight gym, it gave me something to do. It gave me something to put my mind on. And, you know, it might not sound accurate, but whenever you could push that huge amount of weight off your chest, you know, an example, bench press, it was like pushing a huge weight off of your shoulders mentally.
That's the nice part about weightlifting is you can do that the rest of your life. You can do it by yourself. You don't have to rely on anybody else. You know, so many sports, team sports especially, you've got to rely on others. That's hard to do.
And that's good, because you can rely on yourself. And if that's all you've known to be able to rely on, it's very beneficial.
I just want to say thank you all to coming. This means a great deal to me. I did not expect this many of you all to be here tonight. I'm a little overwhelmed to say the least, but hopefully I will do this presentation justice. Okay, are my judges ready? All right. Dennis Fisher was one of the many Vietnam veterans diagnosed with a severe case of post-traumatic stress disorder. This disorder would torment him, leading him to use drugs as a method of coping. Eventually, Dennis would drive his daughter to start cutting her wrist, and as a result, Ms. Fisher plucked her daughter from the toxic situation, leaving Dennis to fend for himself. Good evening, I'm Olivia Darnell, and although PTSD has been observed by the scientific community for over a century, scientists still struggle with their causes and effects in their search for a cure. The term doctors have labeled post-traumatic stress disorder was not always defined as such. Before 1980, PTSD was once known as shell shock or battle fatigue. However, the disorder changed names again, this time in the First World War, to hysteria. In 1914, approximately 1,906 British cases of behavioral disorder without physical cause were admitted to hospitals, and only a year later, in 1915, the casualties grew tremendously to 20,327 cases. Approximately 65 years later, in 1980, the third edition of American Psychiatric Association's Diagnostical Manual of Mental Disorders published the phrase PTSD. This was mainly due to Vietnam veterans who lobbied for a formal diagnosis. However, one question still remains though. What does the phrase PTSD mean? According to the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, PTSD can be defined as a mental health problem that some people develop after experiencing or witnessing a life-threatening event, such as combat, a natural disaster, sexual assault, or a car accident. Statistics show that 7 to 8 people will contract PTSD in their lifetime, and 8 million adults have PTSD in a given year. Although PTSD is generally related with war veterans, anyone who has been through a life-altering event may have the disorder. However, PTSD is more common after a variety of traumas, including combat and sexual assault, as I stated before. I'm sorry, guys. According to the book, Combat-Related Traumatic Brain Injuries and PTSD, a resource and recovery guide, symptoms of PTSD include startling easily, having nightmares or night sweats, having a heightened aggression, having a guilty conscience of why did I live and someone else died, and also, in worst case scenarios, contemplating suicide. For my research, I decided to dig a little deeper into the disorder that troubles war veterans, known as PTSD. This disorder interested me greatly because I wanted to understand what these victims go through up close compared to viewing the disorder from an outsider's perspective. For my product, I decided to hold a Veterans Day breakfast and assembly for local and surrounding Willow Springs veterans. When starting this project in August, I decided that I would need a timeline to complete everything by the set date of November 10th. The first thing to do on my timeline was find a speaker. Little did I know that this would be the first of many challenges I faced with this project. However, I did not let these challenges determine the successful outcome of my project. Finding a speaker was hard for me because I called about 15 people and all of them either did not feel comfortable speaking in front of a large audience or the traumatic events they had witnessed were too painful to speak about. After talking to one of my mentors, Miss Jimlee James, she came up with a man by the name of Mr. Robert Gooch who might be willing to speak at the assembly. I felt an overwhelming relief whenever Mr. Gooch agreed to be my speaker at the assembly. However, my luck did not stop there because Mr. Russell Lewinsky also agreed to speak at my assembly. After that, I needed to reserve the new gym with the middle school and high school coaches. I also needed to reserve the auditorium with the middle school staff. In September, I needed to contact the VFW, American Legion, and nursing home to let them know about the Veterans Day breakfast and assembly, where it would take place, how many people they were bringing, and what arrangements needed to be made for them. In October, I needed to make flyers and programs. This was a bit difficult for me because I am not good at designing programs. This was a challenge for me. However, I overcame it. I found this program on Google. It was a template, and so I downloaded it into my Google Drive, and I only had to put the little breakfast and assembly on those items. So that was fairly easy. However, if you can look right here, I made that flyer from scratch with help from Miss Pettit and her desktop publishing class, and Mr. Knapp also helped me with the formatting, and he told me how I should make it more appealing. It underwent many rough drafts. This was the finalized project though, and I love the way it turned out. After I made the flyers and programs, the flyers needed to be distributed around town at local businesses. This was another challenge I faced because I have a busy schedule, so it was hard for me to find time to go and hang them up, but luckily I found time after school one day to go and do that, and lucky for me, many businesses were very accepting of me hanging the flyers up, which was something I was very scared of. After this, I needed to send a press release to the paper. Sending my press release to the paper was a bit difficult because every time I went by to drop off my ad for Kim Rich, she was closed. So one day I finally had to drop by and slide it in the mail slot, and luckily Kim Rich and her amazing coworkers were able to publish it for me in the next week's paper. The final step of my project was to make crafts with the elementary students. Since veterans are overlooked and tossed aside by many young students these days, I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to show the importance of our veterans to young students, all while making the veterans feel a sense of appreciation to be thought of by the younger generation. I contacted Ms. Green about 2 weeks prior to my assembly and asked her if we could do this, and she was very open to the idea, so I cannot take all this credit. It was Ms. Green who helped me with this. These are the second graders who I helped. They made these little Uncle Sam's, as you can see. They're right here on my board. And then I had a group of third graders come in and they made these flags. They finger painted the red stripes, and then they put their hand as the blue, what would be stars. And they each wrote their own individual little note to the veterans. It ranged from thank you to your service, or we appreciate you for all that you've done. It was just very sweet, and I loved working with them. Overall, I had 25 veterans in attendance of my assembly and breakfast. I was very shocked with this turnout. I did not expect this many people to be in attendance of the breakfast because it had never been done before. This was the first year we have done that. So I was very shocked, and I was very pleased with the outcome. As you can see up here in the middle picture are my helpers. I coordinated this event with the local American Legion, VFW, and nursing home, and I planned this event with the Interact Club, FFA, FCCLA, and elementary art classes. Without all these groups, this assembly and breakfast would not be possible. Overall, the veterans really enjoyed getting to talk with their fellow members and buddies about what was going on and how they were doing. After the breakfast concluded, I walked down with everyone to Mumford Gymnasium. I started the assembly at 9:45, and our first speaker was Mr. Robert Gooch. After Mr. Gooch spoke, we had Mr. Lewinsky. Both men did an exceptional job of speaking, and I was very impressed with them. We had various musical performances by the Willow Springs High School Band, honor choir, and the 4th grade elementary class sang. The assembly went very well, I thought. However, one man did not appreciate us not having a prayer before the assembly. This was another challenge for me. He expressed his disdain to me after the assembly, and I took his consideration and wrote it down for anyone who might complete a project in the future, and I told him I was so sorry, I did not mean to offend him. However, he did not feel like this did justice, so he addressed his concerns and wrote a letter to the editor of the paper. So the next week in the paper, I was very shocked to see a letter to the editor about prayer in schools, and just a very, very well-written article about why we should have prayer, and he was very upset, but I could not let this one negative reaction affect my many wonderful reactions. In conclusion, Dennis Fisher finally lost his battle to PTSD, and like many others, he committed suicide. Although PTSD has been observed by the scientific community for over a century, scientists are better understanding causes and effects in order to find a cure. Before I leave you all tonight, I would like to challenge each and every one of you to be the best person that you can be by thanking a veteran for their service or sitting down with them over coffee. Veterans are tossed aside and overlooked in today's society, and this was the main reason I saw the need to host a Veterans Day breakfast and assembly for all the Willow Springs veterans. Thank you. Do my judges have any questions?
Did you see there was a more difficulty in getting younger veterans than older veterans?
Yes, I only had older veterans in attendance of my assembly. I did not have any younger veterans, and I don't know why that is. I don't know if they just don't want to come out or if they're afraid to, but yeah.
The answer to that, a lot of them are still working.
Yes.
So and the time frame might have been an issue, but this is well put together, very good. This is something as a nurse that the government is putting forth a lot of new things.
Yes.
PTSD is one of the things that we are going to definitely have to be looking at in the nursing homes and across everywhere. So kudos again.
Thank you.
I'm also going to tell you that you can't make everybody happy all the time.
Yeah.
You did. I was at the assembly, and you did an awesome job.
It was awesome.
Well, and I didn't want to upset anyone at the assembly. There hasn't been a prayer for the past 3 years, but we did hold a prayer at the breakfast, it was closed off and it was not open to students, so I felt comfortable holding a prayer there. I felt like I wouldn't offend anyone.
I think you're not gonna make people happy.
Yeah, exactly.
You do what you do.
I can tell that you feel very strongly about your presentation.
Yeah.
One thing I'll just ask is, what is the most important thing you've taken away from this project, this endeavor, I guess?
I think the most important thing I've taken away would be how crucial a role our veterans play in today's society and how important they are.
I appreciate it. I have a grandson who's in the Air Force, been deployed 3 times. And I worry about PTSD. He's a bomber in the Special Forces. Those things have got to affect people. And also, I was raised in a military family. I grew up on military base. And my dad was in the Vietnam War. So it's a shame that people don't realize that only 0.5% of the population serves in the military and defends us, so we can have these freedoms here at home. And we do not appreciate them. Every single day we should. So I appreciate your presentation.
It's very good.
Are my judges ready right now? Okay. So the addiction epidemic in the United States has gotten so bad that it's likely to assume even those of you who haven't experienced it know somebody personally who has. And that raises a lot of questions like what exactly is to blame and how can we mitigate these factors that seem to lead adolescents into becoming drug addicts later in life. Good afternoon, I'm Sean Smith. I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes about our addiction problem in the United States. To begin with, you're probably very familiar with intervention programs such as the Drug Abuse Resistance Education Program, or more formally known as DARE. These intervention programs are usually given to children in the 5th grade in attempts to mitigate the harms of drug use by making children aware about substances and trying to educate them about these substances so that they're more knowledgeable and can have the mental tools necessary to be able to tackle this problem when they're older. But I've looked around this high school and I've seen a lot of students who I don't think exactly are following the model that I think they're attempted to instill among us. So how effective are these programs really? Well, on a similar program called the Adolescent Decision-Making Program, or ADM for short, used on 6th graders, there was a follow-up in a study of the participants 2 years later, and what the study found was that while the participants did not use tobacco as much, the program had no effect on the use of harder drugs such as cocaine or LSD. But that doesn't mean it's completely hopeless in this area, as a new form of drug education called harm reduction education has surfaced in recent years that seems to show much more progress. That seems to show much more promise. In fact, in a study done on the School Alcohol Health and Alcohol Harm Reduction Project, or SHARP, they found that it reduced alcohol-related harms by around 20% and increased the students' attitudes towards cannabis use, and they talked with their parents about it more. And the importance of early drug education itself is not something that can be stressed enough, as the dangers of early drinking, said by Kay Proving, prevention specialist at the Hazelton Foundation, said, a study done in the 1980s said that people who begin drinking before the age of 15 are up to 4 times more likely to struggle with addiction or alcoholism later in life. And Kay Proving, a prevention specialist at the Hazelton Foundation, said herself that it's so effective for parents to see something this concrete, and every year you can keep children from consuming alcohol or other drugs, you're buying them time. In order to understand addiction, most people seem to have these misconceptions about it, and they only think about addiction in the sense of physical dependency, where you've used a drug for so long, so consistently, that your body requires it to function normally. Like, for example, you take a sleeping pill every night for a week and stop suddenly and you won't be able to sleep correctly anymore. but this is not entirely accurate, as addiction is likely best defined as a behavioral disorder where users will compulsively seek to use drugs despite any negative consequences, no matter how severe, such as your wife leaving you or having no money because you spent it all on drugs. But that's not entirely true, as it's not well known that using a drug consistently for a long period of time can actually cause neurological and chemical changes in the brain structure that make it more difficult to quit using drugs, called turkey. And how the United States deals with addiction problems and addicts is also another facility that has a lot of shortcomings, shown by rehabilitation facilities and incarceration. Now, these may sound like good ideas on paper, but when I talked to my mentor, Professor Jeff Conger, at the CrossFit Church here in Willow Springs, who was formerly addicted to alcohol and pornography and now has a reformed life as a pastor at the church here, he seemed to wholeheartedly agree with me on the subject that addiction, the reason that people form addictions is because they have an underlying problem, and these facilities do not deal with that underlying problem. If you stick somebody, a drug addict, someone who's using drugs in jail, and expect them to be completely reformed in a few months, you're going to be pretty mistaken, and chances are they'll be back in there pretty fast. But, so how do addicts who truly want to get better deal with their addictions? Well, there are many options. First, there are 12-step programs such as Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous, AA and NA. And these are very important for providing a social group for people with addiction problems, or a support group of people who share their fears and hopes. But they also have some shortcomings in the way that they tend to teach about addiction. They use the Bible and God very extensively, and personally, me and Jeff Conger believes that if in any other area of medicine your doctor told you that the only cure to your disorder was to turn your life over to God, you would probably seek a second opinion. But furthermore, there's also maintenance treatment. And what that is, if you're unfamiliar with it, is if somebody has used a drug like heroin for so long that they cannot quit it without facing severe withdrawal symptoms that would cause them to relapse, they can go to a doctor and get a prescription for a similar drug. In the case of heroin and opioids such as methadone, which they can use in controlled dosages to slowly wean themselves off the drug without facing fear of withdrawals. Another problem with this particular way of tackling the problem, however, is that a lot of people choose to abuse the drugs they get. But cognitive behavioral therapy is currently considered the best way that a current addict can cope with their addiction, because, like I touched on earlier, it does deal with the underlying problems. An addict or somebody with an addiction problem will sit down with a therapist or mental health professional, and they will work on the behaviors and things that caused them to form the addiction in the first place, and work over time to change them so that's less likely to happen again in the future. The purpose of my senior project was to create an informative lesson on harm reduction education and present it to the threat assessment team of staff members at our high school here in Willow Springs. My harm reduction lesson included several key points of harm reduction and teachings, including what to do if somebody is overdosing on drugs, and knowledge about Good Samaritan laws. For example, what that is if you and a fellow drug user and your friend overdoses on those drugs, you can call 911 or the cops or somebody to help them without fear of being arrested. And a lot of people don't know that, so it can cause a lot of deaths. Harm reduction education is mainly focused on mitigating the harms, and one of the key principles is that there has never been and never will be a 100% drug-free society, so we can at least attempt to mitigate the harms caused by those drugs and better inform people about them. The threat assessment team is a team of sort of elite staff members here at our high school who deal with certain social problems like school shootings and whether or not we actually have a drug addiction problem here. And the purpose or relevance to my research is that I wanted to make them aware of this new kind of education, because I think it would serve our students much better at helping them not become addicts later in life and giving them better tools to be able to understand problems and help people better. My challenges with my senior project, we're missing a lot of school. I was not here anywhere near as much as I was supposed to be for one reason or another, or as I would have liked to have been. My mentor also, unbeknownst to me at the time, before he agreed to be my mentor, was going through a lot of family issues during this time, and I believe he had to go back and forth between Springfield a lot. At any rate, I was not allowed to meet with him as much as I would have liked to either. This is one of my harm reduction slides on addiction. In my conclusion, harm reduction education is always preferable to complete abstinence because I believe it's unrealistic to think that we can create a high school somewhere where no teenager there uses some kind of drug. You know, no matter what you tell these kids, some of them are going to want to experiment with drugs. But if they don't have the right knowledge or tools about it, a lot more of them would probably get killed doing it. Rehabilitation and cognitive behavioral therapy programs are always preferable to incarceration because they do deal with the underlying issues of addiction and actually attempt to solve the problem at its source instead of just mitigating the symptoms per se. So thank you. I believe we can create a better, healthier future where less adolescents struggle with drug addiction later in life. That's conclusion, that's all. Exciting.
You're talking about maintenance treatment?
Yes.
So, do you think that that's like an appropriate avenue for people to take, or do you think rehabilitation in another form is better? Or what's your thoughts on that?
I believe it highly depends on the circumstance and if the person who is seeking maintenance treatment is likely to abuse those drugs instead of using them the way that they're actually supposed to. And in the case of most drug addicts, I think that they probably don't have the long-term self-control necessary to stick to the regimen that would require maintenance treatment to actually work effectively. So in short, I'd say no, it's probably not always the best option for it.
Did you feel that you're meeting with the threat assessment? Did you feel like would they feel like they were open to your ideas or what you shared with them, the information?
The majority of the team, yes, I felt like they were open to my ideas and very engaged and helpful. There were a couple who seemed not so engaged, but they didn't talk much anyway. In general, I think the threat assessment team was very helpful and friendly and engaged in my lesson. Yeah, I think they took something from it.
Great, thank you.
I forgot it in my kiddo. That's why I was trying to do it myself. Ben, is this yours?
Those are Edric.
Just
I know, I just saw that.
Yeah. No, you didn't. I want everyone to get
That co-workers. She can tell you anything. That's probably the only reason she was in here, because I did so well during the practice that she was here.
We're supposed to do things like this. You did a really good job and get that. Well,
John, in there. Proud of you.
Oh, I think you were just.
Probably.